Jack Baker here, Safety and Compliance. We'll walk you through how to get a successful brake check inspection.
Oliver Lent, Fleet Maintenance Manager, JLE Industries. Highlight on some of the things that you can do to have a successful brake check.
As we all know, the key to getting a good roadside inspection always starts with a good driver vehicle inspection, pre-trip and post-trip, as well as driver vehicle inspection reports sending any defects in to maintenance through the ALD. But to start this off with, on a roadside inspection, Operation Brake Check especially, what they're going to do first is they're going to get you chalked up here and probably start inside the vehicle with the vehicle running, pumping down your brakes and checking to make sure your air reservoir is working properly. After that's completed, they will most likely start with checking the front brakes. Now, you know that these trucks here at JLE, most of them have the brakes with the rotors, not with the drums. So it will be a visual inspection, air leak inspection, listening to see if there's any air leaks, inspecting the hose, the brake chamber, and push rods, or inside to look at the drum and axle brakes. After they do that, they would probably most likely be on a creeper coming back through and checking all your air lines and all your air connections to make sure that you don't have any air leaks or constrictions. Checking your hoses to make sure they're not kinked, damaged, or worn. Moving on to the drive axle brakes, again looking at your drums, your brake chambers, and your hoses. It's always a good idea to just look through. If you look through, you can actually see the opposite side brake assembly and drum brakes a lot better from the opposite side as you could looking at it from this side. But you can see there the brake pad looks very good on these. You don't want to see any cracks or damage or grease in the brake linings. You want to make sure they're at least a 1/4 inch thick, because if they get to be over a 1/4 inch thick, or after they get less than a 1/4 inch thick, that's when we start having issues. Also, all these hoses here, sometimes, you know, you're hauling on the rough roads, the hoses will come disattached or come apart and start rubbing the frame, and also your air reservoir. It has to be, you know, have to maintain where that's positioned instead of having the bolts broken or falling off. From the rear, you can kind of get a very good view of both your brake chambers, your push rods, and your air hoses. And if you can see way up on top there, you can just get a glimpse of your air reservoir and make sure that's properly attached and not loose. The hoses, again, they should be spaced apart. They shouldn't be banded together. They shouldn't be rubbing the axles of frame or onto one another. Remember, you know, you can't repair these airlines with just a piece of hose and hose clamps. These need specialized compression fittings. If you have a damaged section of hose, or if you have an air leak, you know, you just can't tape it together or band it together, because that's a serious violation. It has to be a compression fitting on these hoses here. Once you go back up through here, the inspector would probably ask you to apply the brakes and hold it there until to release it. He would go back through and mark and measure all the brakes for a brake adjustment. Although they don't really measure too much on the disc type brakes, it's more for the drum brakes. But definitely you want to make sure your push rod travel isn't over 2 inches on that.
We're going to go along now and go over some things that you can do on your own to help you get a successful brake check. And just because it's National Brake Check Week, it doesn't mean they're not going to be looking at other things too. I mean, they're standing right here, the tires right here. They're probably going to gauge your tires. As they're walking down through, they're probably going to be looking at lights, making sure that they're operative. They're going to be looking at airlines not being chafed, not rubbing up against something, making sure that they're free and clear and no signs that they've been rubbing on anything. Disc brakes are almost an inch thick in most cases when they're brand new. So if they get underneath a 1/4 of an inch thick, it's probably time to start looking at getting somewhere and getting them changed, or getting them looked at by a brake professional. You want to look at your airlines here. One of the things you want to look at is make sure that your your airline assembly coming from the tractor to the trailer is not rubbing on the catwalk. If you have tarps and stuff stored here, or other load securement or other equipment stored here, make sure that this is not rubbing on it. That could be a violation as well, having your lines rubbing on anything. Making sure that they're not chafed or rubbed or show any signs of wear. One of the things another thing you're looking at too, and we see it a lot, is the glad hand rubbers in here wearing out and causing an air leak. They're going to be listening for an audible air leak as we're walking past. You can check that simply by leaving your tractor brake applied, releasing your trailer brakes, come back and put your ear next to the red air line. Once you release the trailer brakes, it's charging the air system in the trailer. If you have a leak there, if you have worn out glad hand seals, it'll show up right there. The other thing, where the blue air line comes in, if you release your set your tractor brake, release your trailer brakes, pull down on your trolley valve, listen for air coming out of the blue air line. That's activating the service brake chambers or service brakes on the trailer, which will be sending air back to the blue air line. If you're coming down through here, they're going to be looking at your lights. They're going to be looking at other things. Just because, like I said, it's brake check week doesn't mean they're not going to be looking at other things. One of the things that we want to talk about, and we see it a lot, is we're going to talk about the difference between a wheel seal and a hub seal. If it's on the outside of the tire, this area here, this is a hub seal. If it's on the inside of a tire and you see an oil leak, that's the wheel seal. You can very easily tell if you've got a wheel seal leaking just by looking in at your brake shoes from the opposite side. You can tell if there's signs of oil there. You definitely have a wheel seal leaking. That is not only an out of service, but if you don't catch it, or if you're fortunate enough to get through the inspection without the officer catching it, that can cause problems down the road with wheel bearings, a wheel locking up, those kind of things. So just by looking at that inside wheel assembly at the wheel seal, you can tell if you have a wheel seal leaking. If you're walking back here and you still have your trolley valve applied, listen for air leaks too, because that's just the same as you putting your foot on the brake pedal. It's charging the service side of the air chamber. Listen for air leaks. Apply the trolley valve. Back here at your lights, making sure that all your lights are working and your license plate light is working. Making sure that your license plate is actually there. You can also look at, from back here, you can also look at both rear axle brakes and see the thickness of the brake pedal. You can also check the wheel seals on these ones as well. Part of whenever you do your pre-trip, post-trip, and you do your pump down test, when you're hitting that brake pedal, you're actually adjusting your brakes on the trailer, adjusting the slack adjusters on the trailer, as well as adjusting the brakes on the tractor. The way the caliper is set up, when you're doing that pump down test, each brake application is giving you a little bit of adjustment. It's supposed to be part of your pre-trip. You're supposed to pump it down. What I like to do is build the air pressure up all the way till the governor shuts it off. You hear the air dryer pop off. Slam on them brakes a couple of times real hard, and that'll help adjust your brakes and keep them within adjustment. Another thing, making sure that your dunnage is secured. Bungee cords are not acceptable securement. 2-inch strap. Whether your dunnage is here, whether your dunnage is up here, whether your dunnage is here between the landing gear, make sure that it's secured with something other than a bungee cord. Making sure that your tires, again, greater than 2/32 on the drive, 2/32 on the steers, 4/32 on the steering tires. And then when you find something, completing your DVIR, whether you're in PeopleNet or whether you're using Motive, Keep Trucking, doing the DVIR so we can get it taken care of, get it corrected, get it documented so that we're all safe and legal. Oliver Lint, JLE Fleet Maintenance Manager.
Jack Baker, Safety Compliance Specialist. This was your safety tip of the week. Stay safe.
Stay proudly driven.